Security people who watch cams, what is the most bizarre thing you've ever witnessed? I used to work in the control room at a county jail about 10 years ago. It was our job to control all the automated doors and the security cameras in the facility. This included following officers with the cameras during wellness checks every 15 minutes through our special housing, which involved checking each individual cell's camera. One day, we were following the officer on the first check after lunch was handed out. We start checking every cell's camera. A lot of naked guys eating sandwiches, but nothing unusual, until we get to about the 6th or 7th cell. The first thing I see when the feed comes up is blood. There's blood everywhere. The bed, the sink, the toilet, the floor, the walls. It's on everything. But the guy is amazingly still on his feet and screaming at the officer when we enabled the intercom. He's screaming, "I don't need it. I'll never need it again, so just take it," and throw something at the door. His D. He threw his D. He broke his lunch tray and used one of the pieces to cut his D off. Because as he saw it, he was never going to need it again because he was going to be sentenced to prison. I don't even remember what his charges were, but I remember that he was only looking at about 2 years maximum. My friend had to monitor the cameras for our university library, mostly the late night hours where the library was officially closed, but access was available to most students. Sex everywhere. Like, we were walking through one of the loft areas and she was pointing out places she'd watched people have sex, and it just made me want to never step foot in the library again. Nowhere was safe. Used to work night security summers at this recreational campground. Had tent sites and RV hookups, but also cabins, ranging from simple to top of the line with their own hot tubs, multiple pools, tennis courts, miniature golf, the works. It was camping for people that didn't want to go camping basically. One night a group of young women in their 20s or so, turned out later it was a bachelorette party, approached the back gate cameras almost in a military style formation. They turned and all 6 flashed their tits at the cameras. The incident became known as the 12-gun salute. Saw a trucker drive his huge trailer to the loading station and fit it in like a glove. Perfect first try, then falling out of cabin dead ass drunk. Damn Russians. I am not in physical security, but one place I worked at was a hidden bunker in the middle of nowhere. The car park looked like it was just a random paved area in the middle of fields hidden down a tiny country lane as the entrances couldn't be seen easily. We had cameras watching the outside and one weekend a bunch of expensive cars pulled up, people got out and started filming a porn movie, then just drove off. But the weirdest thing was that we noticed the cows in the field next door always had at least one cow watching the entrance. They took turns. One cow would always start watching the door before another would look away to start eating. We got a little obsessive about trying to find any footage where there wasn't a cow staring at the door and could never find any. Worked in a well-known discount retailer a few years ago and was friendly with the store detectives. One day, they called me into their camera room to show me some footage they got over the weekend. Several overhead views of a middle-aged man lingering behind various young women, looking all around, waiting for his window, then bending down quickly to sniff their asses. He was slick. None of them seemed to notice this guy crouched right behind them with his face just a couple inches from their butt. They got him on camera doing this like 4 or 5 times before they tracked him down and told him to leave the store. I used to work security night shift in a 34-floor hotel. While doing my rounds, I walked by the gym to see a huge hole in the wall. We're talking 1x1.5 m, with one of our potted ferns which had been dragged in front to pathetically try to cover it. After reviewing video footage, I find this 300+ man running on the treadmill. The man has probably never used one in his life and seems to be struggling with the controls. He is running faster and faster, and eventually can't keep up. He goes flying off, rams into the wall and stays down for at least 5 minutes. He eventually gets up, covers up the hole with a fern, and walks out. Around 2003 I was working at Sam's Club in loss prevention. One day while watching the tapes I saw an old man uncomfortably approach the tire mounting area. He proceeded to drop his pants and sit on a stack of tires about 3 high. Got up and walked away a few minutes later. Upon inspection we discovered that he shat on the stack of tires. Of course we knew before we saw it because it stank very bad. I worked in a full contact haunted house this past Halloween, and it was fun hearing the security guards talking about the stuff they saw on the monitors. Then the owner once said he was walking by the monitors when he saw an actor pick a dude up over his head and throw him over his shoulder into the coffin, which was actually really comfy, and was a bit horrified. The security guard nonchalantly said, "Yeah, he's been doing that all night." I worked weekends at a hospital for a security company with hundreds of cameras all over the hospital. I frequently am assigned to be the officer who watches cameras in the rooms of patients under observation, threats to self or nursing staff, and have access to the files in our archives. The most bizarre thing I have ever seen in the archives is one of the patients under observation escaping security and making it all the way to his car completely naked. This guy was admitted for reasons that I have only heard secondhand. He was young, maybe mid-20s, and looked normal compared to most of the psychiatric patients that come into the ER. Most likely delusional and a danger to himself. But the key to his story was that he came to the hospital for help with his problems but did not know that by telling us that he was suicidal that a doctor would order him under observation and he would be unable to leave the hospital whenever he wished. Now the process of getting care for mental health issues in an emergency room can take hours because the specialized staff are off-site, and only one is present on campus at any given time. He decided that he could not wait and that coming to the ER was a mistake. So he decided to escape. However, this particular patient was smarter than your average case. He took note of the cameras, the angles of each one, and watched the other patients nearby intently as they were escorted by security to a completely stripped, special bathroom. As the security guard in the small room that joined with his and a few other patients' rooms opened a door to the adjacent hall, where the bathroom was located, the guard would immediately turn his or her attention to the other patients. Next to the bathroom was another observation room, but that guard was usually seated. Both of these officers, he seemed to gather from the smirk on his face, were not allowed, under any circumstance, to leave their post unless removed. Anyone running from this officer would have a huge head start before a free officer could be summoned over the radio. All he had to do was get out of reach of the nearest one, and they would not be able to follow. There was one problem. The bathroom door opened up toward the seated guard in the hallway. Apparently he had devised a solution to this problem and asked the first guard to use the bathroom. Everything goes as planned. From his point of view, guard number 1 opens the door, lets him walk into the hall and then goes back to the other patients. Guard number 2 remained seated and watches to make sure he actually goes in. He is in the bathroom for almost 10 minutes, and the guard in the hall notices, but doesn't change anything about his routine. While the patient was in the bathroom, no camera. He stripped completely naked and lubed up his entire body in a thick layer of hand soap and water. The now fully lubricated patient, I imagine, took a deep breath and flung open the door as hard as he could. The camera files show the seated guard almost falling back out of his rolling chair in surprise. He hadn't even come to terms with the fact that he was going to have to grab a curiously shiny naked man when the man made 5 long strides down the hall at full speed and turned the corner toward the waiting room. The patients in the waiting room just froze in shock, and the guards by the entrance exit started running toward him. Half a dozen nurses and half a dozen security guards grabbed at him with gloved hands, but every single one of them came up with nothing. None of them could get in front of him, and any attempt to grab the lubed up streaker failed. Some guards were holding their heads, mouthing what the duck, and others were in full sprint after him. He made it in under 30 seconds out of the hospital and out to the sidewalk that lead to the parking garage. He made it all the way to his car, but no further. No keys. TLDR. Naked patient under observation lubes up entire body in bathroom and slips away from security and sprints through the ER to his car. But he didn't have his keys. That was certainly the most bizarre, but I have seen a number of other things on the cameras. A patient just snapping and bashing a security guard's head against a doorframe and spilling his blood all over the floor. The Super Bowl, pointed at a waiting area TV. A woman taking a staple out of a book binding, pricking her wrist in a suicide attempt. A man on bath salts who came in with his girlfriend's finger in his mouth screaming in agony because he thought the staff were aliens trying to abuse him. A man dropped off in the lobby who bled out in seconds from a stabbing wound. A dead patient OD'd on heroin in a stretcher coming back to life flailing like a zombie. 100s of nurses flirting with doctors, male nurses. Nurses with dying patients checking Instagram. Good cameras. A suicide. Archive. A 150 pounds 5 feet 7 inches security guard taking down a 6 feet 4 inches 250 plus lb patient. Dozens of old people falling on their way out of the hospital after being treated for falling. Note, wheelchairs are always offered. Not something bizarre, but just know, if you fall on camera, everyone that works in the building that a security guard likes will see the video multiple times. I work loss prevention at a major department store. I could fill this thread if I had time, but the one that sticks out the most is we had this guy come in every other day for a solid month. Same outfit. Clean. Shy. Sort of looked like he had downs, but I'm no expert. Well, due to his attire and actions he earned himself the title Plastic Cowboy, because what he would do is go to a quieter part of the store and start molesting mannequins. I'm not talking just the hand going from ankle to ass crack. He would unzip their zipper and slide 2-3 fingers inside that area and go to town. We ended up barring him from the mall and our store after he went for some kid mannequins. A woman I know went to a casino about 2 hours after they opened on a weekday to get tickets for a show. As she was walking by the security desk, 2 women behind it were laughing hysterically. She knew one of the women and asked what was so funny. Turns out a couple minutes earlier they had found a pair of women's underwear. Not too strange, but that early on a weekday in the middle of a main walkway, plus the fact they were big old granny panties, got them curious, so they were replaying the security tape. Sure enough, a little old lady in a dress with a walker was just walking along. When her underwear started to fall, every step they fell a little more, till they hit the floor. She stepped out of them and just kept going. I work at a car plant, won't say which company, but every night, this homeless guy hops the fence and sleeps in a car, and he's out by 4 AM on the dot. Myself and the other security guards decided not to report it since there is never any damage or things missing from the car. I wasn't watching a camera but was working the front desk. The call button to the main elevators was hard to find because of a poorly placed potted plant. This one lady couldn't find the call button, and before I could walk over to show her where it was, she resorted to knocking on the elevator door. It took all I had to hold my laughter until the elevator door closed with her inside. Holy, I can answer this. I briefly worked security at my college dorm. Jesus Christ, you wouldn't believe the it people do. My personal favorite was watching a very tiny girl get into an elevator, and as soon as the doors closed and she was alone, she just started spinning and randomly punching the air. She didn't stop until she got to her floor, and then she just walked out like nothing ever happened. I also once watched a guy stop the doors from closing with his head. His head was stuck in the doors for a solid 20 seconds before they reopened. On the ship during technical guard on shore, we had security cameras pointing outside and would look at it when bored. We once watched how the outside civil guard desperately tried to stay awake. It was really funny to watch. She would read a book and always slightly go down with her head. Then she at some point switched to painting, sometimes standing up doing squats and stuff like that. Not on cam, but saw from the desk. It was a dorm, and the lobby area was open to the first and second floors, with guardrails on the second. A kid wanted me to buzz him in but had no student ID, so I said no. He starts walking away, then quickly turns around and jumps his white ass straight onto the second floor. I didn't even call the RA. He earned it. Another kinda funny thing I saw on cam was a circle of kids smoking a blunt. The RA slowly steps up to the circle, but nobody notices until somebody goes to pass it to him. Without a word, all 10 or so of them just disperse in different directions as casually as possible, like a puff of smoke. I work at a car dealership. We had a co-worker pass away last year. He always liked to move the cars around and make them look nice. Shortly after he died, we have on camera one of the cars just moving on its own. It moved a good 3 feet forward. It was kinda trippy. Security officer at a bank. We had cameras on the inside and on the outside, with the idea being that the outdoor cameras could capture a license plate during a heist. Thankfully that never happened while I was working there. One day something in the upper right corner of an outdoor camera feed caught my eye. Couldn't figure out what it was, but it looked like a small animal moving back and forth. I sent one of the other officers to investigate, and he came back shaking his head with a big grin on his face. It was a homeless person stroking his shaft in broad daylight. I got to see some chick getting face ducked in a jacuzzi. The kicker was that she was under the water and the guy was using the handrail as leverage to ram his rod down her throat. He was straight up moving the ducking rail too. It wasn't like a passionate throat duck. He was straight up ducking this chick's mouth. I'm not technically security, but I had access to cameras at my old job and would watch them whenever something interesting happened. One time we had a drunk guy come and it all over our walls and then simply walk away. One of my customers, who was drunk, cycling home naked, my boss and I proceeded to follow them, pissing ourselves laughing. The funniest bit was when an ambulance started following too. Once my customer had arrived home, the paramedics proceeded to have a chat with him, still stark naked, of course. Whilst waiting to get a spare key from the university campus security, me and the guard watched two guys on the overhead camera make a pizza on a pool table. They had dough, tomato puree, grated cheese, pepperoni, mushrooms and a pizza tray. At this point the guard goes off to see what the hell is going on. Probably the worst thing I saw was a female employee fall out, hands down the pants, scratch her junk. Then she reversed and did the same to her anus. Guess both sides were itchy. But wait, there's more. She then sniffed her hand, and then, drum roll, licked her fingers. You ever laugh so hard you can't breathe, but you're gagging at the same time? Then one time we had a dude jack off onto a rack of Fubu, which speaks for itself. Best funniest case I ever made was a dude who grabbed $1,300 worth of high-end clothes on Christmas Eve and ran out. He got a call right as he was leaving, and just took off running. Get out to the parking lot. There's a 50-yard line of clothes, and two large guys standing over top of one guy who's screaming about his legs. My buddy and I look at each other like WTF, thought maybe these two customers chased him down and beat him. Go back and watch the outside video. Guy runs out past these two with a mound of gear. Sure enough, they chase. Getaway vehicle, a minivan with the sliding door open, comes barreling up next to him. Guy can't really see it well. The clothes pile is high. He's shedding clothes to see, and knows these guys are gaining. Suddenly our perp stumbles, falls, and the van runs him the duck over. Beautiful. Edit. Yeah. The guy lived. I saw Modest Mouse smoking a joint on the camera at a hotel I worked at a few years back. I did this program that let you experience life as a police officer while in high school. Had a uniform and everything. Was allowed to work in the jail, but my stepdad worked there too and wouldn't let me work days or in certain parts for fear of harassment. One time I worked an overnight weekend shift in the jail communication security room. Someone came in with a guitar or banjo and turned on the comb for a couple isolated rooms and played a whole bluegrass type song for the inmates. They were dancing and knee slapping on camera. It was a great time. Also crazy that you had to unlock each door remotely every time. Officers couldn't access them on their own. Great learning experience. Watched a pickup park outside a garage style storage unit. Driver walked away. Hours later at dusk, another guy crawls out from under a tarp in the bed of the truck, rolls up the storage unit door, rolls an ultralight out of the unit and flies off. Another one, less bizarre and more horrifying. Recovered footage of a parking structure collapsing into an occupied shopping center food court to assist with recovering hopefully living victims. Not a security person, but we witness a homeless man squeeze his butt cheeks against the main door of our office building and defecate the most foul layer of it ever. Old boss that ran a pizza restaurant got tired of people not doing their jobs. While on the road with him to pick up new prep tables and such, he had me check the cameras to make sure everyone clocked in was working. One girl up front eating mint after mint for like 5 minutes. One girl in the back just dead face staring at her phone. Last one, a dude in the back mock dancing to a Fergie music video. Called up the store, told them to stop sucking down mints and get back to work. and that a chubby white boy dancing to Fergie wasn't appropriate for a restaurant kitchen. Got the stink eye from one of them, but the other two thought it was hilarious since they got to catch Fergie boy mid-dance. Did loss prevention at Walmart a few years ago. Still have some videos saved on my phone. But I literally watched grandma get hit by a white Ram truck on Christmas Eve on the camera in the parking lot. Almost a decade ago, woking moonlight security at a downtown loft, beside the 6 homeless drunk bathrooms, and drunken brawls. Hand down best security moment, not camera, goes to a young cop detaining a suspicious character we called in. The character was a homeless woman, thought it was a man on footage, trying to nestle in between some hedges. Thought it might be bad, so we called it in. Turns out Saish was setting up her bed for the night. Cop initially got scared itless cause she had been away relieving herself when she surprised him checking out her stuff. He ended up taking her to an extra house ran by those not too far away from her status, and getting her set up as a janitor's for the location I was securing within a week. My GF isn't security but was reviewing footage from her workplace. She has an older lady co-worker who I always hear about doing crazy it. Anyways, she sent me a video of footage of this lady walking into the stockroom with trash bags. She apparently was tired and wanted to take a nap. She put one trash bag over her legs and the other over her head and laid down on the stockroom floor and took a 30-minute nap. When confronted about why she put a trash bag over her legs and head, she said it was so that she wouldn't get dirty from the floor. Craziness. A family friend that had a huge house hired me to house sit for them. They just wanted me to feed their dogs, fish, and cut the grass once or twice and generally make it look like someone was home. The first night they asked me to stay over at their home for the night because the house across the street was going to have a big party. So they made me watch the outside, patio, garage and other cameras. I had brought my laptop and was playing Garry's Mod while glancing every so often. A bright light from the pool cam catches my attention and it's 2 sorority girls with sparklers making out on the deck. Seriously, what the duck? I grabbed the big mag light they gave me to use and yelled the girls away. They were giggling drunkenly and I didn't see anything else for the rest of the time. Edit. To the people who keep insisting I should have ducked the sorority girls. No. Here's why. 1. They were drunk and therefore couldn't consent properly. 2. Everything was on camera and it was a busy street, increasing the chance that one of the neighbors would tell the homeowner. 3. My mind is not as focused on sex as you might think. Just because I'm an angsty and horny teenager doesn't mean I don't have standards. 4. The girls were sketchy and STDs could have been an issue. 5. Pregnancy would have been likely. If I had been caught, the girls would have been arrested for statutory rape, as I was under the age of consent. 6. If caught, I would lose face with my parents and the homeowner, meaning I couldn't talk to his hot daughter. So please, duck off. My time to shine. I am a security monitor for a tech company. We monitor alarms and cameras for our buildings across the whole globe. Here's a few that stand out to me. Panic alarm received from Shanghai. Upon launching footage, I can see a group of people on one side of a glass door, and on the other side, some dude trying to light something with a lighter. They're all holding the door shut to prevent this guy from gaining access. Eventually one of our security guards goes through the door and gets in a scuffle, at which point he was stabbed twice by this guy. Blood everywhere. He managed to apprehend the dude anyway. The assailant had just gotten fired and was looking for revenge. Several door alarms somewhere in San Francisco. Some naked guy somehow managed to get into the building and was rolling around on the floor, hitting everywhere. Notified of a vehicle accident. Rolled back the footage to watch a guy on a motorcycle get run over by a bus and die. It's the 4th of July. Door alarm received in Iowa somewhere. Notice that there's authorized personnel in the area. No big deal. Sometimes these happen if the door wasn't opened smoothly. Let's roll back the footage. And, yeah, there's the receptionist getting nailed by some guy on the desk. Took him about 2 minutes. I've seen all sorts of stuff. Dude's vape exploded in his hand. Girl jumped off a balcony and died. Black bears. Guy got severely injured when a glass door shattered as he opened it. Yeah, the world can be gnarly. I've got 2 decent ones. This is at our backup data center in the suburbs in a commercial office park. Dead quiet, no one is ever there. Cops mostly chill in the parking lot to sleep basically. During lunch this one guy parks in back and starts eating his lunch. Then the door opens. He runs in back of the truck, runs back to the door to grab the bag from his lunch, drops his pants, and lets loose a torrent of diarrhea. It just explodes in the middle of the parking lot. There was no way those pants remained unscathed. Then he wipes his ass with his lunch bag. What lunch did you have, you might ask? It was from Portillo's. Personally, I love Portillo's. That bag did not deserve that fate it was given. This was amazing video and captivated the entire IT staff of like 54 at least an hour of the runs. Another time, we hired a cleaning service to clean that same office. Dude shows up in a really itty car, like 18 years old, parks in back. He then pulls out a giant bong and goes to town for about 10 minutes. We're watching this and laughing, and we call up our man on site, and when this kid comes inside to work, we ask our employee, hey, what's he smell like? So we called up the firm that sent him. It's a small business. Our guy knows the owner actually, so we're listening to this one side of the conversation. It goes like this. Hey Bob, so the cleaning guy showed up? Yeah, he's here. Hey, let me ask you something. Do you know this guy really well? OHH. He's your son? Well, this is awkward. The top 2 incidents at my job were 1. A couple of drunk idiots trying to steal the parking lot barrier. 2. A cat and a fox circling each other until a squirrel ran past and then they both chased after the squirrel. These events occurred at a grocery store with a gas station. 2 separate instances of people pooping in the floor. The first lady left a trail to the bathroom and her son stepped in it, in flip-flops. Second was an old man let a turd slip down the leg of his pants in the exit doorway. One of our employees slid in it. Luckily she did not fall. My favorite incident was a lady complaining there was ice at the gas station that caused her to slip and she wanted to sue blah blah blah. So I pull up the footage, ends up she tried to step over the gas hose while it was connected to her car and tripped and fell. Icing on the cake, she knocked her head off of her own car. After being shown the footage she decided to drop the issue.